Good morning, runners. Dr. Jeff here, physical therapist and running specialist at Run Live Well. Today, we are going to talk about a super spring that we have developed over the last 3 million years, and it is really the secret to running fast and running efficient. Let's head back to the clinic and we'll talk about some of the research. One of my favorite running research articles is written by Bramble and Lieberman. Lieberman, you may recognize his name from the Born to Run book that was written about 15 years ago by Christopher McDougall. Lieberman, in his research and in his papers, he likes to talk about how we have evolved from our ancestors to become running machines. In this particular paper that I'm referring to, they talk about 26 traits that we have acquired over the last 3 million years that allow us to run super fast. One of these, or actually a combination of these, is our super spring. So if we look over on the left here, the first thing we lost was our tail. And we'll notice over the years that we come into a more upright posture, and we start to develop things like a bigger glute that really allows us to push out the back. We also developed a longer Achilles tendon, shorter metatarsal bones, a strong big toe, and a long stiff Achilles tendon.
I don't know if you have noticed a fun piece of trivia, but the number 26, the magic number, keeps reappearing in our running world and in our lives in general. The number will reappear several times throughout the video. Let me know in the comments below if you know other examples of the magic number 26. For example, common marathon training plans are 6 months long, or 26 weeks. In my opinion, the most important of these 26 magic adaptations is the development of the super spring. It is something unique to us humans that allows us to store 52% of the energy from contacting the ground as elastic spring recoil, so that we can use it again. There is a tremendous heat cost of the biochemical reactions that produce muscle contraction. Our bodies are only about 20% efficient, so if we can use elastic energy instead of chemical energy, we're going to create a lot less heat, which in the long run is going to allow us to keep running faster without our central governor shutting us down. So these magic adaptations occurred over the last 3 million years. Everything was going fine and dandy until about 1970 when some things happened. Do you guys know what happened in 1970? A lot of things were happening in our running world. It was the first year of the New York City Marathon. Oh, here we go again. Another magic 26 number appears. There are 26 miles in a marathon. 1970, though, was really the beginning of the running boom. In the literature before this time, there were not many running injuries reported. In this year, Ron Hill from England won the Boston Marathon in some shoes that are very similar to very minimalist or barefoot shoes of today. But I think the biggest thing that happened in 1970 that affected the running world is the birth of the running shoe as we know it. The heel crash pad and the motion control footwear were born. Neither of these were good ideas. They have changed our running mechanics and resulted in a lot of running injuries. There has not been one single shoe ever invented that the research shows to decrease running injuries. Fast forward 50 years and we have a number of incredible super shoes which do seem to increase performance. The jury is still out whether they are causing more running injuries or not. I plan to follow up on this topic in separate videos in the near future. Ron Hill's marathon-winning shoes clearly offered very little support. Famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright's mentor stated that form follows function. But Frank Lloyd Wright puts it better. He states that form and function are one. Many of the shoes that were developed in the 1970s and the following decades, with narrow toe boxes, raised heel crash pads, and arch supports, actually changed the form of the foot, which has interfered with the marvelous function of the foot that was created over the last 3 million years. Many modern shoes have a far too narrow toe box, which crowds, in particular, the big toe and pushes it laterally and creates a bunion or HHV deformity. About 1/3 of us runners have this problem. If we do not address this problem, our running function and performance will decline. Is the running shoe evil? I'm going to leave this can of worms for a future video, but let's make a few comments for today. And can you also leave me your comments about what you think about this topic in the comments section below. First off, I'm not a barefoot runner. There are many benefits to different types of running shoes. I love running shoes. I've not counted, but I think probably I have more than 30 pairs in the closet. The research does show that if you run in different shoes, not different colors, but different types of shoes throughout your training week, you will have up to 39% less injuries. There's similar evidence suggesting that if you run on a varied surface for 1/3 of your miles throughout the week, you'll have similar decreased injury risks. This makes sense because changing the shoe underneath your foot is really changing the surface that you're running on for that particular run. Going into the running shoe store, for me, is like going into a candy shop. There are so many tempting choices. I advise runners not to overthink it, and the research shows just pick the most comfortable pair of shoes on the wall with a good wide toe box and lots of room for your toes in front and to the side, and you will do fine. Most healthy runners with strong feet should be able to run with 90% of the shoes on the wall without risk of injury, as long as they are working every week to keep their super springs strong. About 25% of us North American runners would be diagnosed as having flat feet. The vast majority of us run in running shoes. It is interesting to observe that the research shows that the Tarahumara Indians from Mexico, featured in the book Born to Run, had 0% flat feet. And they're famous for running in almost bare feet. They wear some minimalist sandals, often made of rubber tires that are strapped to their feet, just to offer them some protection, but no support or no cushion. By wearing supportive shoes, and every supportive brace builds a weakness, you're contributing to weak foot and ankle musculature. The research shows that weak foot intrinsic muscles will contribute to the risk of foot and ankle pain, which can keep us from running. About 50% of us runners will experience Achilles tendonitis at one point in our lives. The Achilles tendon being the most important part of our super spring. Our calf and Achilles can reclaim 35% of the energy from impacting the ground, and our foot muscles and tendons 17%. What an amazing super spring! Fortunately, we can strengthen our super springs. And this study shows that the runners who did the foot strength exercises here, 26 of them, had 42% less injuries after a period of 1 year. The negative with this study is that they had to do so many exercises. After being a physical therapist for 35 years, I haven't worked with too many patients who would do this many exercises. Most runners do not have the time or the energy to do this. The good news is, though, that you can strengthen your super springs with some very simple ways that do not take much time at all. The foot has 3 main arches. These arches are composed, believe it or not, of 26 bones. Like the blocks of a stone bridge, the 3 bridges really form a 3-dimensional dome, which allows for part of our super spring. This super spring is also composed of 4 layers of muscles. The foot core and their tendons, like the combination of lumbar arch and core muscles that prevent back injury and allow us to lift heavy loads. The foot core stabilizes our arches and helps us run faster and better. The research shows that we can maintain and improve our arch height with foot strengthening. In the picture, I and my twin brothers are demonstrating how the foot arches work. In the model, my abdominal muscles represent my foot core. Looking at me from the side, you can see that I have a nice high arch, and I am able to easily hold up my chubby twin brother because of my arch is stable because of the co-contraction of my core muscles. Looking at me from the front, my twin brother, on my back, you can see the transverse arch of the foot. My right hand represents my right first metatarsal head, and my left hand represents my 5th metatarsal head. My feet pointing out behind me represent my calcaneus. One might imagine if my hands were closer together, I would be much more unstable. My toes would be more crowded. My first ray would be a less effective lever. This is one reason why a wide toe box on your shoes is very important for most runners. This is yours truly, before and after 12 weeks of super spring exercises. About 25% of us runners have hyperpronated feet. About 1/3 of us have a hallux abduction deformity. Many of us have a narrow and unstiff Achilles tendon. These factors put us at risk for running injury and slower running. Research shows, though, that all 3 of these factors can be improved with foot and ankle strengthening. The way the foot spring works is with pronation, we store elastic energy in our foot core muscles and tendons. Then with supination, this free elastic or spring energy is released and helps to push us off the ground. So contrary to what a lot of shoe salesmen have told us over the years, pronation is not a disease. In fact, this is what it makes us fast runners. The caveat is that pronation has to be controlled, and it has to be fast so that energy can be stored and released when the foot supinates.
I hope you guys are all getting something out of these weekly videos. Run Live Well is a brand new running channel, and if you can take just a moment to subscribe and like, that will help us grow our running channel and bring you more fun and interesting content every week. So let's get right down to it. Let's start building our super spring. I'm going to teach you guys the super spring exercise. This exercise is also referred to as doning of the foot. The super spring strength exercise is really a series of exercises. It starts off with the simplest exercise that I can think of. All you need to do is simply take off your shoes. The research shows that just walking barefoot
will strengthen the feet over a period of about 8 weeks.
So if you don't have time to do these specific exercises for your feet, what you might do is just start spending a little bit more time barefoot. So let's get right down to it, the super spring exercise. So maybe let's take off our shoes or put on some zero shoes, some minimalist shoes, and let's go down to the track. I want you to imagine that I am a foot right now. My core muscles, my abdominal muscles are really what's holding me up right now. I want you to imagine that my butt here is a big talus, and in a minute, Giselle here is going to be my tibia. So I'm co-contracting my abdominal muscles right now. I'm nice and stable if my tripod is stable. So my first metatarsal over here, the head of my fifth metatarsal over here, and my calcaneus is really my 2 feet. So I'm able to take her whole body weight on the arch, because when you compress an arch, it just gets stronger. So let's try the super spring exercises. I'm going to show you about 7 different variations. The first one is the very basic part of the exercise, and that's just getting into what's called short foot posture. So you simply come into single leg stance. You will feel the muscles of your feet co-contracting to keep you upright. Now, while you're in this position, I want you to imagine that you have an egg underneath your instep, and you're trying not to squash that egg, but you are trying to bring the ball of your foot, your first metatarsal head, that tripod, part of the tripod, you're trying to bring it towards the heel bone, your calcaneus. You're not clawing your foot, you're trying to push down with the ball of the foot while you're shortening up the arch. Over to the other side and try the same thing. This exercise can be progressed by getting onto a compliant surface or a Bosu ball or wobble ball. This progression is just walking around the gym or your home. It can be barefoot or it can be in those minimalist shoes that we just talked about. So the next step is just to walk around practicing your short foot posture, keeping that imaginary egg underneath the arch of your foot. This will build some strong super springs. By taking away our vision, it makes the super spring exercise much more challenging. Try this, you'll be surprised. You can just close your eyes. You can also try this on a Bosu ball. You'll be surprised how difficult it is. I can really feel my super spring working. This next exercise is a soleus raise. It is one of the most important exercises for runners. The soleus really is the most important running muscle, in my opinion. It is the muscle that we are running at marathon pace that really pushes us down the road more than our glutes and quads. So what I'm doing here is keeping my knee bent around 30 degrees. This puts the gastrocs at a mechanical disadvantage. It makes it actively insufficient. So we're really isolating the soleus muscle. The soleus muscle is really about 2/3 of the muscle, and it contributes 2/3 to the Achilles tendon. One of my favorite exercises, the single leg RDL, can be converted into a super spring exercise by simply doing it barefoot and concentrating on that short foot posture. You are hinging from the hip and trying to balance. You will notice my foot and ankle muscles co-contracting like crazy so that I don't fall over. Getting a terrific workout in my arch and my calf and my quad and my glute and even my core. Working my foot core and my abdominal core at the same time. Another great progression of the super spring exercise is simply jumping rope. I love jumping rope as a plyometric exercise for runners. It really helps to develop the super spring. It also teaches us to really shorten up our ground contact time, which is really one of the biggest secrets to utilizing the super spring correctly. Really good runners tend to be on the ground for around only 200 milliseconds. A lot of the novice runners I work with are on the ground for more than 300 milliseconds.
If you want to become super elite, like a canyon, you're only going to be on the ground for 160 milliseconds during the marathon. Usain Bolt is only on the ground for 80 milliseconds in his 100-meter race. So start off skipping rope with both feet at the same time, but concentrating on your short foot posture and concentrating on getting off the ground. Load and explode. Get off the ground as quickly as you can. Jumping the rope really helps you with this, because if you stay on the ground too long, you're going to trip up.
Wow, I believe I am observing the evolution of the super spring exercise right before my eyes. The nice thing with the super spring exercise is you're really only limited by your imagination. You can have the exercise be a simple single leg balance exercise, foot doming, all the way up to a single leg plyometric exercise over here. So guys, I hope this super spring progression helps you develop your super spring and run faster and better with no further running injuries. So runners, I hope you're enjoying the new Run Live Well channel. Hope to see you next week. If you can take a moment and hit the subscribe button, you'll get notified when new content comes out, and it also helps us to grow our brand new channel. Have a great week. See you next week. So guys, I almost forgot. If you can leave me in the comment section below any questions or possible topics for future Run Live Well videos. See you next week.